What's up, Jet Nation? Greenbean here, and I am standing outside the former residence of our fifth president, Mr. James Monroe, and I got presidents on the mind, which leads me to the big news of the day. Jamal Adams, the Prez, is talking about a contract extension. So let's get into it and talk about all things Jamal Adams when we come back. All right, welcome back, Jet Nation. Once again, we are going to get into the situation with Jamal Adams. It came out last night that Jamal was, he was stating that the Jets have reached out to him to go ahead and start working on extending his contract to keep him around long term. Now, there are a lot of people that agree with that, and there are a lot of people that don't agree with that. Let's get into a little bit of the pros and cons for both sides and whether or not it makes sense to do either. Let me just say this as a little disclaimer. The fact that he mentioned that the Jets reached out to him doesn't mean anything, by the way. Okay, so you have the cheerleaders on the one side saying, see, I told you the Jets were going to extend Jamal. We should keep him around forever. He's a perennial all-pro and all that sort of stuff. That's great. It's good news for that side, I would say, but it doesn't mean anything. So the guys on the other side, hoping to get maybe a lot of value in draft picks or potentially players for Jamal Adams, they shouldn't feel defeated on their side either. It's just talk. And at this time, it could be agent motivated. It could be the Jets, Joe Douglas in particular, reaching out to Jamal's side to try to set the feelers on what Jamal will be asking for. With a contract extension, this year Jamal is supposed to count just a tick over $7 million against the cap. His base salary is around $785,000 with certain bonuses and such. And the signing bonus prorated. It actually ends up being just around $7 million, his cap number. And then next year we have the option for the fifth year because he was a first-round pick. So we have Jamal on the line for 2 more years. So his negotiating power, while it's there, obviously, it's limited by that. We own this guy for 2 more years. So Joe Douglas doesn't have to do anything. Now, there are many reasons on both sides why he would if they do restructure and, extend his contract. But let me just make sure that everybody understands that this conversation means nothing. And let's be clear, it came from Jamal Adams, which again, this isn't the most solid source. I mean, yeah, sure, they may be talking to him, but it doesn't mean anything. So let's just get that out of the way before we move into the pros and cons. So let's start with the pros for retaining and extending a player like Jamal Adams. So number one, he's a Pro Bowl player, okay? He's been to the Pro Bowl twice already in his 3 years. He was the MVP of the Pro Bowl. His first time around, he wasn't this time. But that doesn't matter. He made it to the Pro Bowl. And so last year he was a second-team All-Pro, and this year he's a first-team All-Pro. So this is a guy who, if you look at his numbers, and even just his accolades, he is progressively getting better. He's on the upswing. Okay, he had 6.5 sacks this year. I really wish he would have been healthy for the Ravens game. I would have loved to see him, and his impact during that game, because I feel like the Jets actually played well. It just didn't fall for us. But so anyway, I think Jamal Adams could have had another 1 or 2, but the numbers are 6.5 sacks, which is really high for his safety. And he did okay. He had a couple picks, a touchdown. He had obviously that strip sack. He basically owned the Giants game. He had 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. One of those was the strip sack that he made it for a touchdown. That one play where he sacked the QB, he actually sacked him. He fumbled it. Saquon Barkley picked it up. It went right into his hands, and Jamal jumped on him and tackled him too. So that was an insane play. Jamal was on fire that game. It's the New York Giants, so there's that. But so if you look at this guy, he's actually on the upswing. This guy is still ascending. So whatever we like about him now, chances are he's going to still be improving. He's not even in his prime yet. So that's a major positive for keeping this guy. One, we never draft anybody good, and we finally did. So why should we be looking to get rid of the damn guy? He's probably going to be a perennial All-Pro and at least Pro Bowl player. And his impact, while some will argue that it's not game-changing, his impact from a lot of viewpoints is felt just about every single game. Some games he downright owns it. Redskins and Giants come to mind. Again, competition is what it is, but it's all NFL. So that's the major one of the major pros. So another pro is that, and this is going to also be in the con column, but a pro is that we're probably talking about $15 million to retain and extend Jamal Adams, 15 or so. Let's just say between 15 and 16 million to get him. Eddie Jackson over in Chicago signed a $14.6 million a year contract for 4 years, and then you got some others. I think Tyrann Mathieu, I forget his number, but he signed a very rich deal, as did Landon Collins with the Redskins. So Jamal's more than likely going to require that he gets paid more than those guys, which I think is fine. But that's definitely going to happen. But when you look at $15 million, when the cap is going up to $200 million, $15 million is 7.5% of the entire salary cap. So this is, I think, a pro. I'm going to flip it and use it as a con in a minute. But I think it's a pro. When you look at a perennial all-pro player, a guy who can take over games, and we've seen it, who's a great, a fiery, influence on the team. The team seems to love him. They vote him the MVP every year, and he gets a Pro Bowl and first team All-Pro and all that sort of stuff. 7.5% of the entire salary cap. That bad, and that's it. Like, the question is that too much to keep, to retain a perennial All-Pro? No matter the position. We'll get into that in a second. But no matter the position, you have a guy on your team who is a perennial All-Pro, still ascending, who's going to really be hitting his prime. Who knows what that's going to bring with it? Is 7.5% of the salary cap, and that's only for this year. When it goes up again next year, that's going to incrementally decrease, maybe 7%, 6% of the salary cap moving forward. In a couple years, the highest paid safety he's going to be second, third, fourth in about 5 minutes anyway. So a major pro is that we're only talking about 7.5% of the salary cap. The last pro I'll give, and I just kind of touched on it a second ago, is that the team loves this guy. Okay, Greg Williams loves this guy. Now, I can understand why some Jets fans don't. I can understand why some other people don't. I get it, and we'll get there. But the truth is that the team loves him. They believe in him. He plays hard every single game. The guy's coming to bring it. He talks and all that, yes, but he's coming. He's bringing his best, his A game every single week. And yet, that can't be said for a lot of guys that we've had in the past. For some reason, Wilkerson just popped in my brain, that piece of garbage. So, fat and lazy. So Jamal Adams, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get his best. If it's not good enough, we have that argument, but you're going to get his best, and the team loves him. So that's a series of pros that really support, I think it's a no-brainer from that perspective to retain a man like Jamal Adams, okay? Now, let's get into the cons. One of the things I noticed, did you see his interview at the Pro Bowl? Right after the Pro Bowl, a young lady went over and interviewed him, and she said, "So, what do you like about this year's Pro Bowl? Being a part of this year's Pro Bowl?" And the first thing that came out of his mouth was, "Well, I get more money." And then he said, "Nah, just kidding." But we all know he's not kidding. So generally speaking, when somebody makes a comment like that and then says, "I'm just joking," your wife has a nice butt, I'm just kidding. That they're, it's not a joke. They mean what they're saying. So Jamal's answer to that was, "I like getting more money." So I can see why that rubs people the wrong way. And, if you look at that type of a comment, those are the things when you look at Jamal's Instagram or his other social media outlets that he uses, I can see why people get rubbed the wrong way with Jamal Adams. He's a talker. He's nonstop. So you have that. That's a con. This guy, he doesn't shut up. And when last year, right around the trade deadline, he downright had a temper tantrum. So how positive is that for the team? Now you have a guy that if you don't walk on eggshells and handle him with kid gloves the right way, he's going to go on social media and blast the team and say all these negative things about wanting to go to the Cowboys and all this kinds of stuff. So how positive is that really? Sure, the team loves him, but you can flip that into a very serious con where if he is the leader that we think he is, and he's actually turning negative toward the team, could that not cause a major rift inside the locker room where team unity is concerned? So maybe we get Team Jamal and, and it has a negative impact. So there's that. Jamal and his talking and all that sort of stuff. Look, you can't really defend it from that point. You can say it doesn't bother you. That's fine. But you can't say he doesn't do it and it's not a big deal, because it is. Now, maybe it's not as big of a deal as some people make it to be. Fine, we'll take that. But the guy can't shut up. And sometimes he says some things that you just go, oh, what is he doing? Now, that trade deadline was a big one. He wouldn't even talk to the GM and the coach for a week, or whatever it was. I don't know what that is, man. So there's that. Now, the other side of it, well, let's say another con to retaining him is this. We have a perennial all-pro player. You know, I think back to some of these trades. Last year was a really good one, Tunsil. The Miami Dolphins got 2 number 1 picks and I think an additional player for Tunsil. Now, sometimes these things come around when you have this, you have this increased value for a player that you can actually flip that and parlay that into more collateral, more ammunition to rebuild your team. Jamal Adams just might be there for us. So there is the outcry like, hey man, how important is a strong safety really when you're talking about 7.5% of the entire salary cap, when we can parlay that into maybe 2 first-round picks, or at minimum maybe a first and a third. I'm seeing out there guys on the Jet Nation fan forum message board, like Jets fan 80 and Tom Shane and Patriot Killer, and even guys like Beerfish. Oh man, they are all over this, and they think that if you can maximize his value, and they have this point, if you can flip this guy and get 2 number 1 picks for him, this is the kind of thing where you can actually get a jump on rebuilding your franchise, and a safety is just not worth it, even though he's a perennial all-pro. A perennial all-pro at left tackle, different story. So you got those guys on the message board. Like I said, Tom Shane, Jets fan 80, Beerfish, Patriot Killer, and those kinds of guys. They have a legitimate point. Now, keeping him loses that value, and his value is only going to go down. Now, the con of that is I don't really see, I struggle with the idea that that's realistic, that you're going to get that much. So like let's say the Cowboys, for example, they're going to give us a first and a third and pay him the highest paid, make him the highest paid safety in the league. That, I struggle to see that. But if you could do it, you got to consider it. And obviously the last con is what I just used as a pro is that, $15 million for a strong safety, 16 probably. It's going to be somewhere in there. I would say 15.5. That's my guess on what Jamal Adams is going to require. That's his baseline. And a lifetime membership to the Jelly of the Month Club and Omaha Steaks, something like that. So he's going to have to get paid $15.5 million. Now, do you really want to give that to a strong safety who, look, 3 years in, he doesn't really get picks. He doesn't change the game in that way, which is something that you really want from safeties. You look at guys like Ed Reed and some others, but and then you got free safeties versus strong safeties, and we don't have to get into all that. But you'd still like to see some more picks from a guy like Jamal, especially if we're giving him 7.5% of the entire salary cap. So we have this argument. It's an important one. Joe Douglas just might be contacting Jamal Adams' team, and they may be talking about an extension, but again, it doesn't mean anything. My opinion is not going to be stated here. The guys on the board know my side of this very, very well. If you want to learn that, come on out and have the conversation. I think I may have even lost a couple guys that like me on this one. I'm bowing out. These guys are getting hot. But anyway, guys like Joe Willie 12, he's out there. He's on the side of retaining Jamal Adams, as are some others. And we know we're all on there. The debate is hot right now. It's going back and forth, and people are sharing some pretty exceptional points. Get on JetNation.com. Join the conversation. Let me know in the comments below on YouTube what you think. Are you a fan of keeping him, and why? Are you a fan of trading him, and what would it take to trade him? Is it a 1 1/3? Do you just not want to pay a safety and you'll take a 3rd round pick for him? What do you think? But let's get in this. Let's have this conversation. But it's going to be really interesting to watch this one develop. And it's going to be one of the more exciting storylines of this offseason for us Jets fans. But let's go, man. The offseason is running, and we are getting into it here at JetNation.com. Go Jets.